So we're back, Sifu Slim and Master Steve Abbey, and we're talking health and the aging process, and now we're going to move over into something that a lot of men are concerned about, and that's sex drive, libido, and testosterone. So again, we're going to take a look at Dr. Mercola's website, and we're going to use that as a starting point and to see what they've determined, and his blog people have determined, to be some of the issues to think about. So testosterone relates to sexual and reproductive function, muscle mass, hair growth, but it also has some less flashy roles, Mercola's group says, albeit equally important roles like maintaining bone density, levels of red blood cells, and a sense of well-being. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
So you've got other issues like focus. So imagine being trapped in a cubicle all the time, and then in meetings, and then in your car and taxis. You're sitting a lot of time. Men do not want to be sitting. You don't want the lower portion heated up. You don't want a laptop on that. And other people have written books like The 4-Hour Body, where they are talking about icing or cooling off the groin area for more testosterone production and better love life. So
didn't know about that.
Yeah, you haven't read The 4-Hour Body yet.
No.
So he's done some experiments on that, and he's another guy kind of like Mercola that he looks into things and he really goes at it. So there's mood and depression. So it's not just the low T cells that are driving that mood and depression. It's that if you're having ED, that's going to drive that depression as well. Morning time, we know, is the highest of the testosterone levels for men, which is why a lot of men like to have sex, before midday, and before you put a bunch of food in your body, where you're asking your body to send the energy down to digest that food. So, any thoughts so far?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is it helps with lowering body fat and increasing muscle mass. That's the main thing. And mood is absolutely the case. And but my experience when I tried it, and this was years ago, is that it didn't have a tremendous impact on my libido. My libido was fine before and didn't seem any different after I tried it. So
I think for other people I've talked to who have had libido problems, this was, the ones that have confided in me about it, did share that it was a big pick-me-up on libido and energy.
Well, the biggest thing for me, and the biggest impact for me, was I was very thin at the time. I'm still pretty thin, but I gained probably 10 pounds on it, and I was working out with weights, and I just always stayed the same weight. And then when I did that, I just immediately jumped up like 10 pounds, and I was much stronger in the gym.
Do you know what happened to your body fat percentage and your water weight, etc.?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it was just very low before, and my guess is the water weight went up, and my body fat probably, for me, actually, it was a good thing if it went up, but I don't know what it was.
Okay, and then estrogen levels also typically increase due to the exposures to estrogen mimicking compounds, they say, on the Mercola website, in food, water, and the environmental pollutants. So that's something that you got to consider, and the experts will know more about that than we will. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest problem with testosterone is when people do it, there is an enzyme that will break testosterone down into estrogen. And so after a certain point, if your body's getting too much, it'll start really producing that enzyme and break it down. That's why if you overdo testosterone, men will start developing breasts.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful of that.
Yeah, I put moobs on my list, and that's quite common. That if you go in there, they're going to tell you about moobs. So DHEA is something that you can look up on the Mercola website. It says it's the most abundant androgen precursor prohormone in the human body, meaning that it is the largest raw material your body uses to produce other vital hormones, including testosterone in men and estrogen in women. And you can buy that legally.
You can buy that over the counter legally, so it's much simpler to get. You don't need a prescription like you do for testosterone. And it's a spray. You can put it in your, or you can get it in multiple ways, but the
spray under the tongue?
Spray under the tongue, and so it's a very simple way to do it.
And have you heard anything back from people who have used that?
Well, it has very similar reaction as testosterone. So you're going to likely gain muscle mass. You'll probably lose weight and
lose fat. You mean?
Lose fat. You're probably going to have a little bit of a kick to your libido if you're going to have that, and yeah, so that's the main thing.
So some natural ways, according to the site, that you can boost your testosterone. Losing weight is a big one. High intensity interval training. So this is one that I do personal training, and I want to make sure there's a big caveat in here, because I have people I know who are in their 50s who are definitely higher up on the athletic realm than I was in high school and maybe even in college, but I've continued to be kind of an 18-year-old for as long as I can. I'm still on that same level I was when I was 18. I know some more moves in jiu-jitsu. I didn't know any when I was 18, but I'm about that same fitness level, and I can do cartwheels, which I couldn't do at 18. So I can't play 3 hours.
You couldn't do cartwheels at 18?
No, I couldn't do them. I didn't know how to do them. I didn't know how to walk on my hands until I was 20.
You were physically able, you just didn't know.
I just didn't know. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
when you're 18, you've only had, since you could stand and do athletic things, let's say you're 5 maybe, you're doing athletic things.
Sure.
4 or 5. So you only had 13 years to develop a lot of stuff. And I did golf 5 to 6 hours several times per week. What, golf? Golf was a lot of learning. You've done golf before. You know how hard it is, right?
Yeah. So
golf's a full-time commitment. So I did some gymnastics too. I loved the parallel bars and some other things, but I didn't do the floor exercises. I had no clue. I was like the skinny beanpole. Couldn't do them. How about you? Were you doing cartwheels when you were 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were more of a stocky middle-sized guy. So losing weight's a good one.
I was an ectomorph.
You were an ectomorph, but you weren't gangly as I was.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm a physical.
Not many are.
See, there's the real height. So there's the height difference.
Wow.
So I'm a little bit more gangly.
Yeah.
So high intensity interval training. So when you're doing this, it would be good to do yoga, low impact, work your way up before you start doing high intensity interval training, because you don't want a cardiac infarction, which means your heart stops and you're in the hereafter. I mean, if you want libido, you got to be here for the libido. Are you with me?
I hear you.
Okay.
That's absolutely true, and that's had tremendous success. But whether it's yoga or something else, but when you do high intensity training, just start out going a little bit slow and getting your body used to doing that, and warm up before you actually do the high intensity training. But then it's a great way, and you have to have rest in there. You can't just do the high intensity every day, because then it actually will drop your testosterone and all of your other hormones, including, HGH and DHEA. All of them will go down if you stay high intensity every day.
What you're trying to do is mimic the hunter-gatherer or the lion. Think of a pride of lions, and you've got the male lion and the females. They go off like a shot, and sometimes it may take them 4 tries to get the kill. Once they get the kill, they eat the kill, they hang out in the blood. It's like they're full-on spiritual practice. They hang out and they get bloody, and then they eventually clean off, but they're hanging out, maybe having sex. The man might be patrolling the terrain, their 18-mile loop, but the females are hanging out and just protecting their area, and they're not doing that high intensity interval training like when they went on those 4 hunts to get the meal. So mimic that when you're doing high intensity interval training. Zinc. So consuming plenty of zinc is something else they talk about on the Mercola website, but there's a caveat with zinc. You don't want to overdo it, and then it has a relationship to other metals like copper. So read up on that. Don't just go out and start popping pills. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, you have to do it in the ratio. It's 2 to 1 zinc to copper, and I'm not sure which is the 2 and which is the 1, but I know that that's the case. And doing pills, that's what most people do, but I think it's so much better to do it in a whole food form. And you can go online and just type it in and just say highest sources of zinc, and if I remember correctly, it has to do with shellfish.
They're after us.
Yes.
Shellfish. Okay, yeah. And be careful of the Fukushima shellfish as well.
Yeah, be careful of that. So there's a downside to that. Though I believe probably the best way to get them is in dark green leafies. So like spinach and things like that. But you still have to
non-pesticide.
Yeah, organic.
Organic. And then resistance training. So we've got the high intensity, which is like I run sprints up the hill on grass with bare feet, and I'm boogieing. But as soon as my form breaks down, I dial it down. Or if it's really breaking down, like I feel something pulling, then I'm going to stop and just walk it, or that's it for the day. But normally I do every 5 days. I'm doing the sprints up the hill on my resistance training, and I'm 53, and I'm going probably
3 miles an hour?
85% of my capacity, but I'm running uphill, so it's harder. So I'm close to probably 100% when I'm doing that. But I thought I was doing pretty well, and I brought an 18-year-old kid who's a natural athlete who was very fast out there, and it was like, it wasn't the tortoise, but it was like the lion versus the gazelle. The gazelle, this kid was much faster than I was, and even if I was 18,
the lion?
I would have been the lion.
Nice analogy.
Well, I mean, I was plodding along, and the gazelle, that's what he ran like. I mean, I was like, you've seen a lion run, there's a lot of muscle force.
Didn't really
but
want
the
to be
gazelle,
a tortoise, though.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a tortoise. But the gazelle is prancing, and that's what this kid did. And I'm going to see how he does when he's 53. He's very fit, he loves cycling, but we'll see. And I may be around when he's 53, so we'll check in on him. Resistance training. So it's basically, you know, using weights and using. Today I did tire flipping. So that was my squat, back, and breath, and boom at the end of my workout.
But that's your resistance training.
Today that was my resistance training. Tomorrow is going to be dumbbells.
Oh, wow.
And then I have 2 days ago was decline push-ups and Spider-Man push-ups from a rock. And then at the end, you know, lots of, I call those are dive bomber push-ups where you're going through the loop. So I just go till exhaustion. So I used to do push-ups every other day. Herschel Walker does them every day. He still does. Yeah, he's a phenom. I don't do them every day. Herschel's a different body type and definitely a different mindset for doing those things. But I used to do them every other day, and now I do push-ups every 4 days probably, sometimes every 5, depending on the recovery. And you'll feel your recovery. You'll know what's going on. So that's resistance training. Anything else you'd like to mention? Maybe you'd help with some of the information.
Well, vitamin D, the biggest way to get vitamin D, if we're going on to that next, is to be out in the sun. And
exposure.
Exposure, you don't want to overdo it and get burned. It causes you know, DNA damage, it causes wrinkles and all that other stuff. But a little bit of sun and it doesn't take much to create a tremendous amount of vitamin D. Your body makes it readily. And it converts with cholesterol, of all things, to make vitamin D. So the sun, that's how it's created, is from cholesterol and the sun hitting the body.
Have you ever had your vitamin D checked?
I have, and I've had to supplement with it, and that's one of the few supplements in an isolated form that I think is actually a good idea to use. If you've tested and you're low, there are websites that show which ones have actual vitamin D in it, which supplements, because not all supplements do. As crazy as it sounds, you have to get a high quality supplement that's been independently tested. At least I choose to.
Yeah, and I'm all for vitamin D. I happen to live in California. Before that I lived in Spain, and before that I lived in Sacramento, so I've been in California for a while. I do cover up a lot, and I do work out very early in the morning. So several years ago when I had my vitamin D tested, the woman said, if you're a fitness guy, your levels are in the good zone, but if you're a fitness guy, they should be much higher. So she said for your last 20 minutes to a half an hour at the end of your workout, which for me is like 6:30 or 7, take off your shirt for that last 20 minutes to half an hour. And the sun's low. I really like getting sun when it's hitting my body. When I'm vertical and the sun is horizontal, that's a great way to get it. When you're out and getting blasted, like midday, you're getting blasted on your neck. If you don't have a hat on, all that downward blow from the hot sun, I'm not a big fan of doing that type of thing. And that's what the poor pro beach volleyball people do. They're playing matches in midday, and a lot of them are Caucasians, and they're out there practicing and playing in that very powerful high sun.
Yeah, I just saw the championship down in, what was it, Hermosa Beach, and those guys were just getting baked alive out there. Yep. So, and they're doing tremendous damage. They're young enough they can kind of get away with it, but you know, 15 years from now they're going to be thrashed.
It's a long life.
Yeah, a friend of mine who is a volleyball player just was diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma of the skin. So
shoulders?
No, it was actually on her hand.
So a lot of exposure on the hand, even when you're done with volleyball. If you're in the sun, you're driving, what have you. So vitamin D is a positive thing. The sun is positive, but do it wisely. Reduce stress.